Hi, everybody. It's Tim Hagen from Progress Coaching. And certainly these are interesting, weird, tough times for a lot of people. And during this time, it's always a little bit risky putting out a video or a blog and talking about how you can help companies. And I thought a lot about doing this video. And I thought a lot about how's this going to come off. So I'm going to share some pretty tough observations. And when we think about what we do, and which is we teach managers how to coach, and when you think about what we just went through, I think there's some really good lessons. Now, this is not about how we can help you or what program you should buy. Rather, I hope this helps a lot of leaders and people who are in charge of leaders to really reflect on the opportunity. Now, as crass as that might sound during these times, think about the following scenario. The number one objection we get in our business is managers say, I don't have time to coach. We're really busy in our industry. We get it across industries. Now, that's not everybody, but certainly that is some people. So recently, one of our clients, I had a manager call. And this is a gentleman who I would say possessed a pretty high ego. And he really felt he was above coaching. And his concept was, my door is always open. He was not scheduling time with his employees. And so coaching is about having scheduled, thoughtful interactions, focusing on an area of opportunity to improve, leveraging people's strengths, calling people into the office for all the good stuff. The Gallup organization reports, when we lead with strengths, people engage 8 times more than when we lead with constructive feedback. I know this guy wasn't doing that. So he called me, and it was one of the most interesting conversations I've ever had. And he said, boy, do you have anything on coaching people remotely, virtually? And I said, sure. And I said, why did you reach out? I said, I'm happy you did, but why did you reach out? He said, boy, I'm just noticing a difference. My people aren't, reaching out to me. They're not talking to me. I'm trying to engage with them. And I said, well, how are you trying to engage with them? He said, well, I'm trying to schedule conference calls. They're really not communicating. Do you think it's the whole video conferencing thing? I said, no. He said, what do you think it is? I said, it's you. I said, are you prepared for some really tough, direct feedback? Because you can hang up the phone at any time. Now, I know this guy well. I knew I could challenge him. I knew I could go to that line. I knew the client that I report to in terms of the person that we have the contract with was going to be okay with us. And he said, what do you mean it's me? I said, so I'm going to ask you a question. And can we have a rule between each other? We don't react emotionally. We don't listen emotionally. We respond and listen factually. He said, okay. I said, how many times in the last 6 months have you scheduled time with your employees to coach them? He said, I really haven't. I said, I really appreciate the honesty. I said, how many times on a regular weekly basis do you call people in for the good stuff? Just praising them, no constructive feedback. He said, well, I have. I said, great, how often? Notice the emotional response. Well, I couldn't, I don't write it down or anything. I said, how often? So maybe once or twice a week. I think he was stretching it a little bit. And I said, so I want to play back to you factually what I've heard. You haven't scheduled time. You're doing 1 or 2 positive doses of feedback weekly. I would imagine you're still using constructive feedback and challenging people. And he nodded. And I said, so 6 months later, you now want trust, relationships, communication. You want them to open up to you. I said, would that be a fair statement? He said, sure. I said, what do you think they want? He said, well, I don't know. That's why I contacted you. I said, I'm not managing these people. You are. And he said, I said, yeah, you know what you want, yet you don't know what your own people wanted. So now this crisis hits. You're working remotely. Now you need engagement, not only more, but at different levels with different dynamics using different types of tools and video chats. Yet you know what you want, yet you just told me factually you don't know what they want. I said, are you ready? He said, sure. And I said, that's a one-way conversation. A two-way conversation is really understanding your people's strengths, their inhibitions, their fears, their likes, their dislikes. And if you don't schedule time with your people, it's not going to arbitrarily happen. Now, I'm going to ask you a really blunt question, and I want you to bring emotion into it. Had you been scheduling time with your people, had you been focused on a particular area, had you had some traction in the areas that you're coaching to, what effect, if any, would that have had on this current crisis? He said, it would have helped me a lot. I said, how? He said, I don't even know if I know my people very well. Here was the backdrop to the story. I said, well, what do you mean by that? He said, well, I'm talking to my other managers. They're loving this. I said, what do you mean? Well, they're having conversations and they're finding out people have dogs and people are opening up and they're engaged and they're comfortable. And, one person was wearing a funny hat to bring some humor to one of their group meetings. And I said, I'm not following you. I had an inkling, but I wasn't following him. He said, my people are so stoic and they look so terrified. And I said, are you ready for your second dose of feedback? He said, sure. I said, they might be so uncomfortable talking to you in this video chat because they haven't talked to you at all in 6 months and probably longer. They're probably fearful their kids are going to come into the picture or a dog's going to bark because they're not used to having conversations with you. Conversations are powerful. Learning, asking questions, scheduling time, not letting work get in the way. And I share this with all of you. I think one of the best things I've ever attended was 2 things in the past week, the last 3 days, as a matter of fact. I attended a session with fellow Forbes Coaching Council members, and then I attended with a company out of Bethesda, Maryland, Concero, a chief learning officer virtual summit. And it was really interesting because we all agreed things are finally getting back to people. We need to get back to people. We need to, more than ever, get back to people. Conversations matter. When we know people's inhibitions, their likes, their dislikes, their strengths, their weaknesses, their fears, their career aspirations, we are ahead of people who say, I don't have time to coach, I'm really busy. Increase your conversations, increase your dynamics, increase your dialogue, increase your strength-based acknowledgement, and that will help you sprint out of this crisis versus limp out of this crisis. Good luck.